Hello, welcome to Post Colonial Space. I'm Masood Raja speaking to you from my tiny little apartment. So, today I have an interesting topic. I would like to briefly talk about whataboutism. And now, the reason I'm delving into this is that because I recently posted some videos pertinent to Afghanistan and in sympathy with Afghan people, and I got quite a lot of negative comments. And most of those comments had nothing to do with the substance of what I was trying to say, and that was speak in solidarity with people of Afghanistan. But they pretty much all relied on whataboutism. So what is it, and why is it important to know? Especially if you engage in public conversations about difficult topics. So it has a long history, It was usually very popular in Britain, right? But literally all it means is that in a given discussion, debate, or conversation, while you are presenting your truth or your facts, your opponent, instead of responding to you or your comments, uses a deflection. And usually that deflection starts with, but what about that? Sometimes they would say, but what about your actions over there? But what have you done about this? So the whole idea behind this, maybe consciously or unconsciously, is to derail you from your point of view and to try to make a false causal connection between what you are saying and something else. And in rare cases, and in more terrible cases of whataboutism, they can also make it about you, your personality, and hence the debate then devolves into a personal attack. So anytime when you're making a statement or arguing for a point and someone points to something completely unrelated to what you are saying and points to it as what about that, they are engaging in what we call whataboutism or whataboutry. So what are some of the examples? So in one of my videos, I was talking about Afghanistan and the ramifications of regional powers' actions 30 years from now. And so I posed a question to Pakistani intellectuals as well as politicians that in 30 years, if the Afghans somehow fight through this ordeal and are able to build a viable democracy, how are they going to view the regional powers, right? Which ones were the ones who supported democracy, which ones are the ones who supported the Taliban, an autocratic regime. So let's say if Pakistanis, symbolically or otherwise, are in favor of Taliban, my question was, how would that endear Pakistan to future Afghan people, right? That was the question in that video, which maybe a rhetorical question, but which I wanted to highlight. Now, in answer to that, someone said, but what about what America did? Right? That is ideal whataboutism, because it has got nothing to do with what I am asking. But it wants me to engage in a sort of equivalence, a false equivalence, as if America was equally as terrible as the Taliban. That is a whatabout argument. Now, do keep in mind that it might come across as sinister or something, but we as human beings, as we are growing up, we learn whataboutry at a very young age. Think of it when you were little, right? And you got caught doing something wrong in the school, right? So we always said, but what about him? He did the same thing last week. Why aren't you punishing him? So in a way, I think it's a defense mechanism which unleashes itself and derails an argument or a debate. And you see it everywhere. Mr. Trump was an expert on whataboutry. Anytime you asked him a substantive question about US foreign policy or about his own actions, he will like, but what about those? What about the liberals, right? Similarly, in India, Mr. Modi does that to all the minorities or to Congress. And in Pakistan, of course, it's rampant, starting from the prime minister down to intellectuals, down to the self-declared defense analyst. Every single one of them uses whataboutery. Now, in my opinion, what are the dangers of it if a culture gets so steeped in whataboutism? I think the biggest danger is that it takes away self-reflection, right? Instead of thinking about our own actions, about our own policies, we spend more energies on deflecting and on blaming others, right? And if we focus on that, what it does is it sort of absolves us of self-reflection. And if you look at any culture or any polity or any political unit, unless their intellectuals and the leaders develop this habit of self-reflection without impugning their failures onto others, they are not likely to make the system better, and they are not likely to change their own ways of thinking and doing things. In literary scholarship, of course, whataboutery is the worst kind of scholarship that you can do, because all you're doing is not proving what you believe in, but rather pointing to things that have absolutely no connection with, what someone is saying. Part of it is also like saying, okay, you're talking about Afghanistan, but why aren't you talking about Kashmir, right? That is another form of whataboutery, because it says, well, if you're speaking in solidarity with one group, we haven't heard you speak in solidarity with another group, which then devolves into a question of your sincerity and less about the integrity of your argument and the integrity of your opponent's argument. So overall, there is a wonderful explanation of the term with historical examples on the Britannica page, even on Wikipedia. But I thought I should briefly record something about it, because I often encounter it from so many different parts of the world, and I increasingly received quite a few comments that were all about whataboutery when I posted these videos on Afghanistan and in solidarity with people of Afghanistan. I hope this is useful to you. I hope you go and explore it further. And if you learn something new, please do share it with me, and I'll be happy to learn from you. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them. And as always, I am delighted that you all are part of my life. I'm delighted that you come to this channel for whatever I post, and I'm grateful for that. Please also remember to take care of yourselves and those around you in these terrible times. And as always, before I leave, from me to you, peace and love.